Okay, I want to do a video today while I'm riding my bicycle here. Wanted to go over the differences. I'm not going to go a lot in detail, but I'm going to go over some of the major differences in a Cook Islands, Nevis, and also a Belize corporate structure or LLC and a trust. First of all, let me just tell you, if you're going to set up a asset protection trust, there is no better place than Belize. I mean, I've been through this many times before, and why the other countries will not copy them, I don't know. All I know is Belize is the only country that I know of in the world that has a zero statute of limitation period as far as a lawsuit goes. In other words, once you fund the actual trust with whatever assets it is, it doesn't make any difference if the assets are in Singapore, Switzerland, or wherever they are. If it's funded where the trust owns those assets, then it's protected. Now, typically the best way to do this, and it's protected from day one. In other words, once it's funded, it's protected. Now, if you're in the middle of a lawsuit, there is something called fraudulent conveyance. Now, how the courts view that and how they can implement and try to attach to your assets is something else. And I've always told people you're a lot better off getting an international trust set up than you are a local trust in wherever place that you're at, especially in the U.S. where the lawsuits are so bad. 95 to 98% of all the lawsuits filed in the world are filed in the U.S. because of contingency lawsuits. That means that a person suing you doesn't have to pay a dime until the lawsuit's won. Typically, it's 25% if it's settled outside of court. It's usually 33% if it goes into the courts. Now, if you want to try to ward away from lawsuits, the best way to do it is to make it where the lawyer walks away, doesn't want to take the case on a contingency basis because he's looking and finding, he might not know, but if he does know that it's an international trust, a lot of them will walk away from it. It's just too much trouble. They know that probably even if they win the lawsuit, they're not going to get anything. And then you haven't paid them anything, so to them, it's not worth their time. So you have to, these are things that you have to look at to decide, if you want to go in the right way and do it the right way to begin with. Now, Belize, on the corporations and the trust, they still have to go through the courts to get anything done in the Belize courts. I'm talking about not the U.S. courts, but the Belize courts. So what you're able to do is, whether you have an LLC or an IBC, which is an international business company that owns the assets, it doesn't make any difference. They still have the same statute of limitation period as far as lawsuits go. Once it's funded, whether a trust owns it or an IBC, it doesn't make any difference. It's instant. Now the courts view as far as the U.S. goes, they view if you're a director of a company and you own the stock in the company, the U.S. is saying that you own it. Now, if a trust owns the shares of that, the actual IBC at 100%, then you're pretty much out of the picture, okay? Because a trust is viewed as a separate entity. So if they own all the shares of that corporation, you might be a director on that corporation, and I'll tell you something else too. You're a lot better off putting it where the shares of that corporation are owned 100% by that trust, because it's a lot easier to set up bank accounts and stuff, because the bank account would be set up under the corporate structure, and then the trustees don't have to get involved in anything. If you're setting bank accounts or you're trying to get things done, and you're not having to deal with lawyers on everything to get everything done for you, because they could be the trustees, but they're really pretty much out of the picture unless there's a lawsuit that's involved, and then they would get involved if they're trying to take it into the Belize courts. But I'm going to tell you something. There are very few people that go from the U.S. into Belize Well, you can't get in the Belize courts, but I don't know if anybody even attempts to try it. It's just such a waste of time. And anybody who's a good lawyer knows, if he's had experience in asset protection, he knows that if that trust is a Belize trust, it's going to be a total waste of his time. And if he doesn't know it, he's going to spend a lot of time and wasted money trying to go after that entity. But again, Nevis and Cook Islands they don't have a 0 statute of limitation period. It runs anywhere from 1 to 2 years. But the problem that you've got is you got that window. Now, the window is real short where somebody can come in and sue and try to attach. It's still difficult in either one of those countries. But Nevis, Belize is going to be a lot better for that purpose. Now, if you're looking at, let's say you don't have a problem, and it's not so much you want asset protection, but you don't want to have to do a lot of filing, because I'm going to tell you something. With a Samoa company, you don't even have to file. And I'm assuming that you're not a U.S. citizen or U.S. resident, because Samoa really works for better for someone that is not a U.S. citizen or a U.S. resident, because if you're in a situation, you don't have to pay U.S. taxes or Canadian taxes. You done whatever you had to do legally to get out of paying Canadian taxes, whether it's an exit tax or from Australia or whatever, and you're not a U.S. citizen, you're not a U.S. resident anymore, and let's say that you've got maybe a St. Kitts citizenship, and maybe you live in a place like El Salvador, for instance. Okay, El Salvador's got a territorial tax system. Okay, a good scenario would be maybe to live, and you ought to have all these separate. You ought to have maybe a separate citizenship from a country that's separate from wherever the corporation is. Let's say that's Samoa, and then your residency is in El Salvador. You need to look at the flag theory. You can go to our website, you can pull it up at the top and just read that, study it, and know it at www.citizenshipquickly.com. And look at the top where it says flag theory. Take that, study it. That's how you ought to be setting up your residency, your citizenship, your corporate structures and stuff. This is how you do that, okay? Also, folks, if you can do me a big, big favor, we don't monetize this channel. And if I just ask you one big favor and hit the subscribe button at the right of your screen, you get new videos automatically as they come out, and it helps our channel get out to more people. And it just helps us move better as far as getting more subscribers. And also, if you like our videos, give us a thumbs up here, and then it will get a better viewing with the audience out there, if you don't mind doing that for us. Now, again, I would stick with, if you're a U.S. citizen, U.S. resident, and you're wanting asset protection, I think Belize is the best way to go. If you're not in that situation, you're out of that situation, and you're looking for asset protection, but you don't want to have to do any filing anymore, and you've gotten out of your tax ties, like I mentioned earlier, with all the countries, and you're either you've got citizenship maybe in a place like St. Kitts, and we can help you with that. And then maybe you've got residency in someplace in Central America that has a territorial tax system. And every country's got that except for Mexico in Central America. I would not advise Nicaragua, though, because the freedom index is really bad there. They've got a dictatorship, but that's up to you. But all those countries except Mexico there in Central America have a territorial tax system. And you can set up a Samoa company. And the reason I like Samoa is it's the only offshore corporation now that you can set up where there is no annual filing requirements that you have to do with that country. You don't have to turn in your contracts with your different people that you work with. You don't have to turn in anything. Okay, you've got to keep records for yourself, but you don't have to do the stuff that now Belize is requiring you to do. Most of these places now are requiring it. In fact, I don't know if any country in the world, even Seychelles, is requiring You have to turn in stuff to the registered agent, bank account statements, all kinds of stuff. You don't have to do this with Samoa right now, and that could change, okay? All right. I'm just giving you scenarios of differences if you're not a U.S. citizen, not a U.S. resident, and you're not from a high-tax country that taxes worldwide income to its residents. Because if you're not in that situation, then a Samoa company comes in really good because it doesn't have filing requirements. It just doesn't have anything. It's like the Belize corporations used to have, like 15 years ago. It's too bad that a lot of these countries have caved in, but I will tell you this, Belize is by far the best if you're going to stay in the U.S. because you're going to have to file the forms anyway, because if you're a U.S. citizen, U.S. resident, but your asset protection is going to change dramatically because now you'll have a 0 statute of limitation period on lawsuits from the time once that money's funded in the trust. And if you're already in some issues, trouble issues right now, there would be no thinking about the difference between a Nevis, a Cook Islands, or a Belize trust. Belize would be definitely the only one I would even consider. And I've heard some people give bad remarks and stuff about Belize and some of these other countries that have real good asset protection. Let me tell you, there's a difference between doing a lot of business in the banks versus getting the corporations there, okay? I would not advise putting a lot of money in Belize banks. Atlantic Bank went bankrupt. Provident Bank had some problems. They ended up switching to Heritage Bank, but they had some real problems a while back. And you need to think about that. And they had problems with their currency at one time. If you do it, like I said, don't put a lot of money in Belize banks. But remember, the structure, the asset protection is totally different in the banking system. It's just, you can't compare them. They're two different entities. I would be doing your banking in places like either Switzerland, Hong Kong, or, in fact, I actually like Switzerland and Singapore better. Hong Kong's pretty good. The problem you have is the Chinese government owning it, but it's supposed to be two separate countries, but it's not being treated that way. But Hong Kong's still a good place to do banking. They've got still real good banking laws there. So anyway, folks, if you want to know more on this, you can go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com, and just ask for some help. And again, if you would do me a big favor and hit the subscribe button right on your screen, it will help our videos get out to more people, and because we don't monetize this channel. And if you got a question or comment, put it below. And again, our website's www.citizenshipquickly.com, and just go there and ask for help, and we'll get back with you. And we've got a WhatsApp number on the screen. You can text there. We also be glad to help you there. And I'll look forward to talking to you on the next video. Take care.